Lily's pencil moved across the paper in smooth, confident strokes. She wasn't thinking about what she drew, just letting her hand follow the patterns that felt right. Curves that looped into themselves. Geometric shapes that somehow seemed alive. Lines that connected in ways that satisfied something deep in her mind. The observation lounge of Archive Station 12 stretched out around her like a cathedral made of glass and starlight. Outside the windows, nebulae swirled in colors that had no names in any Earth language. Lily had been working here for 3 months as a cultural liaison, helping alien archivists understand human art history. Today was supposed to be her rest period, but she'd never been good at sitting still that a small maintenance drone floated past her shoulder, its sensors blinking as it scanned the room. Standard protocol. The archives documented everything, even the recreational activities of visiting liaisons. Lily didn't look up from her notebook. The patterns were flowing now, each symbol leading naturally to the next. The drone stopped. Its sensors focused on her notebook, sweeping back and forth across the page. Then every alarm in the station began screaming at once. Lily dropped her pencil as emergency lights flashed red. Massive bulkheads slammed down across the observation windows with thunderous booms that shook the floor. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making her stomach lurch. Through the walls, she heard the archive's AI broadcasting distress signals in languages that hurt her ears. What's happening? Lily grabbed her notebook and stood up, her heart hammering. Security forces poured into the lounge from 3 directions. They wore full combat armor, weapons drawn but not aimed at her. Not yet. They formed a circle around her, keeping their distance like she might explode. Put down a notebook, one of them said through a translator. His species had 6 legs and compound eyes that reflected the emergency lights like disco balls. Slowly. I don't understand. What did I do? The notebook. Now. Lily set it on the table, hands shaking. A security officer approached with a containment box, the kind usually reserved for biological hazards or unstable materials. He sealed her notebook inside without touching it directly. Director Palm arrived moments later, his 4 arms gesturing frantically. The Quillen administrators first stood on end, making him look twice his normal size. His translator struggled to keep up with how fast he was talking. Where did you learn it? Who taught you? How long have you known? Is this why Earth sent you here? Director, I need you to slow down. I was just drawing. Drawing? Palm's voice climbed higher. You call that drawing? Those are functional glyphs. Do you have any idea what you've done? An elderly figure pushed through the security forces. Scholar Ress moved slowly, his Vontari scales dulled with age. He carried himself with the careful dignity of someone who'd spent decades in quiet study. When he saw the containment box, he stopped walking. His hand went to his chest. Stars and dust, he whispered. It can't be. Director Palm turned to him. Scholar, please confirm. Ress approached the box like it might bite him. He activated the viewing screen on its side, projecting Lily's sketches as holograms in the air. His old eyes traced each symbol, each curve and line. His breathing became shallow. These are Forerunner script, he said quietly. Primary form, not derivative. She's written 17 complete glyphs and what appears to be the beginning of an 18th. He looked at Lily with something between wonder and fear. Child, where did you learn the dead language? I didn't learn anything. I was just doodling patterns. Lily felt panic rising in her throat. What's Forerunner script? The scholar and the director exchanged glances. Director Palm's first slowly settled as his panic transformed into something worse. Dread. Escort Miss Grant to Observation Suite 7. Palm said to the security forces. Not as a prisoner. As a protective measure. Protective from what? Lily demanded. From the other species, Scholar Ress said gently. When they learn what you can do, some will want to study you. Others will want you dead. The Forerunner language hasn't been seen in functional form for 12,000 years. It is classified as a weapon of mass destruction under galactic law. They walked her through corridors that emptied ahead of them. Lily caught glimpses of archive staff pressing themselves against walls, staring at her with expressions she couldn't read. Fear, curiosity, something that might have been hope or might have been horror, The observation suite had a comfortable chair, a bed, and a transparent wall that looked out onto the main corridor. Not a cell, but definitely confinement. Through the wall, Lily watched as hundreds of beings began to gather. Scholars from species she'd never seen before. Researchers carrying scanning equipment. Security forces establishing a perimeter. Scholar Ress stood on the other side of the transparent barrier. I need to ask you something important, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Have you been drawing these symbols for a long time? Lily nodded slowly. Since I was a kid. They just feel right, you know? Like they're supposed to exist. And has anything unusual ever happened when you drew them? Strange occurrences? Unexplained phenomena? She thought about it. Nothing came to mind except the usual coincidences of life. No, nothing. Ress's shoulders sagged with either relief or disappointment. That may be significant. He turned to Director Palm, who had joined him. We need to contact the Galactic Council immediately. I've already sent the emergency codes, Palm replied. They're convening now. Through the gathering crowd outside her suite, Lily saw a young researcher holding up a datapad. On its screen was an image of her sketch, magnified and analyzed. Text scrolled beside in languages she couldn't read, but the tone was unmistakable even without translation. These weren't just drawings. There was something that made the galaxy afraid. Someone please tell me what's really going on, Lily said. Scholar Ress pressed his scaled hand against the transparent wall. 12,000 years ago, the Forerunners were the dominant civilization in this sector. Their language could reshape reality itself. They vanished in a single day, leaving only fragments of their script locked in the deepest archives. Most scholars believe they wrote something that erased them from existence. He paused. You just wrote 17 words in their language. Casually, while bored, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The crowd outside had grown to hundreds now. Lily saw more species arriving every minute, all pressing forward to catch a glimpse of her through the transparent wall. Some looked excited. Others looked terrified. A few looked angry. Director Palm received a message on his communicator. He read it and went very still. The Galactic Council has issued an emergency session. The topic is listed as the human situation. He looked at Lily with something like pity. They want answers about what humanity really is. And they want them now. Scholar Ress kept his hand pressed against the barrier. Tell me, Lily Grant, do you dream of these symbols? Do they call to you? She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him she was just an art historian who liked to doodle. But as she looked at the crowd of terrified aliens outside, at the emergency lights still flashing red, at her innocent sketches now locked in a hazard container, she realized the truth. Sometimes, she admitted, sometimes I dream in patterns I don't understand. And when I wake up, my hands want to draw them. The old scholar closed his eyes. Then it's worse than we feared. The Forerunners aren't extinct. They're just forgotten. And humanity is starting to remember. Lily sat on the edge of the bed in her observation suite, watching Scholar Ress and Director Palm argue through the transparent wall. Their voices were muffled, but their body language spoke clearly enough. Ress kept gesturing toward her with urgent movements. Palm kept shaking his head, all four arms crossed defensively. After 10 minutes of this, Lily stood and pressed both palms against the barrier. The vibration of her hands made both aliens stop mid-argument. I can see you, she said. I can see you arguing about me. So why don't you actually talk to me? Director Palm's fur rippled with what might have been embarrassment. Scholar Ress simply nodded and approached the wall. He sat down cross-legged on his side. After a moment, Lily mirrored his position on hers. What did I write? She asked. In those symbols, what do they mean? Ress took a long breath, scales clicking softly. The language doesn't translate cleanly. But roughly, you wrote words for things like connection, flow, balance, growth. Nothing harmful in itself. But you wrote them in their pure form. Not as concepts to discuss, but as commands to reality. I don't understand. Imagine if I could write the word fire and actual flames would appear. Ress held up his clawed hand. Not a description of fire. Not a request for fire. Just fire because I wrote it. That's what Forerunner script does. It doesn't describe reality. It defines it. Lily felt cold. So, when I drew those symbols, Nothing happened because the symbols you chose were passive concepts. They describe states of being rather than actions. If you had drawn the symbol for burn or break or end, we might not be having this conversation. Director Palm joined them at the wall, sitting awkwardly on his multiple legs. 12,000 years ago, the Forerunners were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were shepherds. They used their language to terraform planets, guide evolution, prevent cosmic disasters. For 5,000 years, they maintained peace across this entire galactic sector. What happened to them? The two aliens looked at each other. Finally, Scholar Ress continued. No one knows exactly. The records from that time are fragmentary. What we do know is that one day, every Forerunner facility went dark simultaneously. Their homeworld, their colonies, their ships, all of them. Just gone. Not destroyed. Erased. As if they'd never existed at all. Most scholars believe they made a mistake, Palm added. That they wrote something catastrophic. A command that deleted their entire civilization. Why would they do that? They wouldn't. Not intentionally. Ress's voice dropped lower. The theory is that they were trying to solve an unsolvable problem. Perhaps they tried to write away death itself or eliminate suffering. Noble goals, but the universe has rules. You can't command away fundamental forces without consequences. We think they broke something at a level so deep that it consumed them. Lily thought about her childhood drawings, the patterns that felt so natural. You said the language hasn't been seen in functional form for 12,000 years. What about non-functional form? We have archives, Ress explained. Fragments of Forerunner texts carved in stone or preserved in crystal. But they're dead. Writing them down doesn't make them work. It's like the difference between a photograph of a bomb and an actual bomb. The image can't hurt you. So why did mine work? That question hung in the air like smoke. Director Palms first stood on end again. That is what terrifies the Council. You're human. Earth is a young species, only recently achieving space travel. You should have no connection to the Forerunners at all. Yet you can write their language in active form, instinctively, without training. Scholar Ress leaned closer to the transparent barrier. Lily, I need you to think carefully. Is there anything in human history that mentions these symbols? Ancient texts? Cave paintings? Cultural myths about a written language that could change the world? Lily's mind raced through everything she'd studied as an art historian. We have lots of ancient writing systems. Hieroglyphics, cuneiform, Chinese characters. Some scholars think they all share common roots, but that's just because humans independently developed similar ways to record information. Describe one, Ress said urgently. Any human writing system. How does it look? Chinese characters have specific strokes that combine in particular ways. Egyptian hieroglyphics use symbols that represent sounds or concepts. Sumerian cuneiform uses wedge shapes pressed into clay. As Lily spoke, Scholar Ress's eyes widened. Show me, he demanded. He produced a datapad and pushed it through a small slot in the barrier. Draw me a Chinese character. Anyone. Lily thought for a moment and wrote the character for peace. Two simple components arranged in a specific way. Scholar Ress snatched the datapad back and compared it to something on his own device. His hand started trembling. It's simplified, he muttered, degraded over time. But the mathematical structure underneath is the same. This is a Forerunner glyph broken down into its component parts. He looked up at her with naked fear. Lily, all of human writing might be descended from their script. Fragments of it scattered and simplified over thousands of years until you forgot what they were. But the foundation remains. Director Palm was making frantic notes. If humanity has been using degraded Forerunner script this entire time, that would explain why nothing catastrophic happened. The language lost its power when it lost its precision. Like a key that's been filed down so much it can barely turn the lock. But I drew the precise forms, Lily said. How would I know how to do that? That's the question that will determine your species' fate, Ress replied grimly. He stood up, joints popping. The Galactic Council is about to ask whether humanity is a new species that somehow learned the dead language, or whether you're the Forerunners themselves, just starting to remember who you were. That's insane. Humans evolved on Earth. We have the fossil records. We know our history. Do you? Director Palm's question was soft. Earth is located in the former Forerunner sector. The timeline of human emergence matches the disappearance of the Forerunners almost exactly. 12,000 years ago, your species appeared in roughly your current form. No clear evolutionary ancestors. Just suddenly there, as if you'd been placed. Lily's hands were shaking now. You're saying we're them. The Forerunners erased themselves and became us. It's one theory, Scholar Rest said. The other is that you're completely unrelated and this is all coincidence. But the Council deals in risk assessment, not comfort. If there's even a small chance humanity could rediscover how to use the full language, intentionally or accidentally. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Through the transparent wall, Lily saw the crowd growing larger. More species, more security, more scholars with scanning equipment. A holographic screen appeared in the corridor, showing an emergency broadcast. She couldn't read the text, but she recognized the image displayed above it. Her own face, her own notebook, her own innocent drawings that had broken something in the galaxy's sense of safety. Director Palm received another message. He read it, and all four of his arms dropped to his sides. The Council has made contact with Earth's government. They're demanding a full survey of human art, architecture, and cultural symbols throughout your history. They want to know how deep this goes. And if it goes deep, Lily asked, then Earth has one standard cycle to prove humanity can be trusted, Palm said quietly, where they implement the quarantine protocol. Every human in space returns home. Earth gets surrounded by a barrier that nothing can pass through. Your species will be sealed away from the rest of the galaxy forever. Scholar Rest pressed his hand to the barrier again, meeting Lily's eyes. We have to prove what happened to the Forerunners, why they erased themselves. If we can understand that, maybe we can help humanity avoid the same fate. He paused. Or prove you already suffered it once and survived. In the crowd outside, Lily spotted new arrivals. Military uniforms from a dozen species. Weapons specialists. Containment teams. They weren't preparing to study humanity. They were preparing for the possibility that they might need to eliminate it. I just wanted to draw pretty patterns, Lily whispered. I know, Rest said gently. But your pretty patterns might be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. And now we all need to figure out what to do about it. The council chamber materialized around Lily in holographic light. She stood in the center of Archive Station 12's main conference hall, but projections made it seem like she occupied the middle of an enormous amphitheater. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy appeared as translucent figures in rising tiers around her. Some looked almost human. Others were geometric shapes that pulsed with color. A few were clouds of vapor that somehow maintained consciousness. This is unusual, Director Palm whispered from beside her. He'd been allowed to remain physical along with Scholar Ress. The council hasn't convened everyone for an emergency session since the Kelvin breach 40 years ago. What was the Kelvin breach? Lily asked. A species tried to weaponize a black hole. It didn't end well for them. Palm's fur rippled nervously. 3-star systems were lost before containment. Lily's stomach twisted. They saw her as that level of threat. A voice boomed through the chamber, translated simultaneously into every language present. We convene to address the matter of species designation human, native to planet Earth. Specifically, one individual, Lily Grant, who has demonstrated active use of Forerunner script. The speaker was a being of pure crystalline structure, refracting light into painful rainbows. Based on their position at the highest tier, Lily guessed they held significant authority. The council recognizes Ambassador Hal Cortez of Earth. A hologram flickered to life beside Lily. An older human man with silver hair and tired eyes appeared, dressed in formal diplomatic attire. He nodded toward her briefly before addressing the assembly. Honored Council, humanity requests patience and understanding. We had no knowledge of this connection to the Forerunners. We've been using degraded forms of their script in our written languages for millennia without understanding what they were. Miss Grant is not a threat. She's a scholar who unknowingly stumbled upon something her species has forgotten. A red-scaled creature in the middle tiers rose to speak. Its translator gave it a harsh, grinding voice. Forgotten or suppressed, the foreigners didn't simply vanish. They erased themselves to prevent catastrophe. If humans or their descendants deliberately reset to forget their power, then humans awakening to that power represents the same threat returning. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several beings gestured in ways that Lily suspected meant approval. The Drellian representative makes a valid concern, the crystalline speaker said. We must determine if humanity poses an existential risk. Scholar Res Avanta, you have studied foreigner artifacts for 4 decades. What is your assessment? Res stepped forward, scales catching the holographic light. On our council, I propose a test. A controlled experiment to determine if Miss Grant's ability is unique or representative of her species. More importantly, to determine if the forerunner language truly functions through her, or if what we witnessed was coincidence. Explain your proposal. I will provide Miss Grant with a specific forerunner symbol. The simplest one in the archives, the glyph for light. It has no destructive applications and minimal reality-altering potential. If she can write it and produce an effect, we confirm the language lives. If nothing happens, we know the symbols are truly dead and Miss Grant's previous writings were meaningless coincidence. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species shouted approval. Others demanded more stringent safety measures. A blob-like entity suggested they test on an uninhabited moon instead of the archive station. After 20 minutes of chaos, the crystalline speaker restored order. The test is approved under the following conditions: complete containment field, energy dampeners at maximum, and immediate termination protocols if unexpected phenomena occur. Scholar Res, proceed with extreme caution. The holograms faded, leaving Lily alone with Res, Palm, and Ambassador Cortez, who had traveled to the station during the council session. Her legs felt weak. Are you sure about this? Cortez asked her quietly. If you refuse, it might buy us time. Time for what? Lily looked at him. They'll quarantine Earth anyway unless we prove something. Better to know the truth. They moved to a specialized laboratory deep in the archive's core. The room was circular, surrounded by transparent barriers reinforced with technology Lily didn't recognize. Energy fields hummed at frequencies that made her teeth ache. A simple table sat in the center with a sheet of paper and a pen. Scholar Res activated a holographic display outside the containment area. A symbol appeared, rotating slowly in 3 dimensions. It looked like a spiral collapsing into a point, but the exact angles and curves were specific, mathematical. This is the glyph for light, Res explained through the intercom. It's the first symbol Forerunner children learned, because it's simple and safe. Writing it should produce illumination from no apparent source. A gentle glow, nothing more. And if nothing happens, then we know the language is dead and you're just a human who happened to draw similar patterns. Earth will face restrictions, but not quarantine. And if it works? Res was quiet for a moment. Then we know the Forerunner's power survived. And we'll have to decide what that means for your species. Lily entered the containment area. The barrier sealed behind her with a sound like thunder. She sat at the table, picked up the pen, and studied the holographic symbol rotating in front of her. The pattern felt familiar in a way she couldn't explain. Her hand wanted to move before her mind finished analyzing the shape. Director Palm watched from the observation area, all 4 arms gripping the railing. Ambassador Cortez stood beside him, face carefully neutral. Scholar Res had one clawed hand on the emergency shutdown button. Begin when ready, Res said. Lily placed pen to paper. The symbol didn't look complicated, but there was a specific sequence to the strokes. She could feel it somehow, like muscle memory for something she'd never learned. Start at the outer edge. Spiral inward. 3 rotations, each tighter than the last. The angles had to be exact. Not quite 45 degrees. Not quite 30. Something in between that her hand knew without measuring. She drew. The pen moved smoothly, confidently. First rotation. Second rotation. Third rotation. The symbol began to take shape. As she completed the final stroke, connecting the spiral to its center point, she felt something shift. Not in the room, somewhere deeper. Like reality itself paid attention for just a moment. The paper began to glow. The IT started at the center of the symbol, a soft white light that spread outward through the curve she'd drawn. Not reflected light, not light shining on the paper. Light coming from the paper itself, emerging from nothing, called into being by the pattern she'd created. Director Palm made a sound like a wounded animal. Scholar Ress took his hand off the emergency button, staring in disbelief. Ambassador Cortez closed his eyes. The light grew stronger but not harsh. It was warm and gentle, like early morning sun filtering through leaves. It cast no shadows because it came from everywhere at once. The paper glowed brighter than any natural material should without burning. Lily's hands were bathed in it. Her face, the walls around her. "Terminate the test," someone said over the intercom. A voice Lily didn't recognize. "No," Scholar Ress said firmly. "Let it complete naturally. We need to understand what happens." The glow reached its peak and held steady. Lily lifted her pen from the paper, and the light remained. The symbol sat there, ordinary ink on ordinary paper, producing impossible illumination. She picked up the sheet carefully. The light moved with it. She set it down. The light stayed. "How do I make it stop?" she asked. "You can't," Ress replied, voice shaking. "That's not how their language works. You didn't create temporary light. You wrote a command that says this is light. As long as the symbol exists, light will exist there. To stop it, you'd have to destroy the paper completely." Lily stared at the glowing sheet. She'd just altered reality with a drawing. 12,000 years of dead silence from the Forerunner language, and she'd brought it back to life with one simple symbol. "The test is concluded." The crystalline voice of the council speaker echoed through the lab. "The language functions. A human can use it. Emergency protocols are now in effect." Alarms began ringing throughout the station. Not the same alarms from before. These were deeper, more serious. Lockdown protocols far beyond what they'd used when first discovering her drawings. Ambassador Cortez pressed his hands against the observation window. "What does this mean for Earth?" Scholar Ress watched the glowing paper like it might attack. "It means humanity isn't just similar to the Forerunners. You're the Forerunners. 12,000 years later, starting to wake up. And now the galaxy has to decide whether to help you remember safely or make sure you never remember it all." In the containment area, Lily sat in the impossible light she'd created, understanding for the first time that her simple drawings had just changed everything. For her species, for the galaxy, for reality itself. The paper glowed on, proof that some powers never truly die. They just wait to be remembered. The containment area became Lily's world for the next 3 days. They moved to bed inside, brought her meals, gave her books and entertainment, though she couldn't focus on any of it. The glowing paper sat in a sealed box across the room, still producing light that never dimmed or flickered. Proof that she'd changed something fundamental. Scholar Ress visited daily, always accompanied by Director Palm and now Ambassador Cortez. The older diplomat had taken up residence on the station, managing the crisis between Earth and the Council. He looked more exhausted each time Lily saw him. "The Council has ordered a complete survey of human cultural artifacts," Cortez explained through the intercom on the 3rd day. "Every museum, every archaeological site, every piece of ancient art. They're analyzing everything for traces of Forerunner script." "Have they found anything?" Lily asked. "Too much." Cortez pulled up a holographic display. Images filled the air between them. Cave paintings from Australia, stone carvings from South America, temple walls from Egypt, scrolls from China, Celtic metalwork from Ireland. Each image highlighted sections where human artists had created patterns. Scholar Ress traced one with his claw. Every human civilization, separated by oceans and thousands of years, independently developed writing systems based on the same mathematical foundations. The patterns are degraded, simplified, but the underlying structure matches Forerunner glyphs exactly. Director Palm added more images. "We're finding it everywhere, not just in writing systems, In architecture, the golden ratio your species uses in building design is derived from a forerunner mathematical constant. The musical scales that sound pleasing to human ears match frequencies the forerunners used in their reality-altering harmonics. Even the way you arrange colors in your art follows their principles. Lily felt her world shrinking. So everything humans ever created is just as copying something we forgot. Not copying, Rest said gently. Remembering. Unconsciously, imperfectly, but remembering nonetheless. Your species has been trying to reconstruct what you lost for 12,000 years without knowing why the patterns felt right. Ambassador Cortez switched the display to show a timeline. We've confirmed the dates now. The Forerunner civilization vanished exactly 12,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence shows anatomically modern humans appeared on Earth at the same time. Not evolved from earlier species, just suddenly there in your current form. That's not how evolution works, Lily protested. No, Cortez agreed. It's not, which supports the theory that humans didn't evolve naturally. You were placed, or rather, you placed yourselves. The Forerunners didn't die. They hit a reset button. But why? Lily pressed her hands against the transparent barrier. Why would an advanced civilization erase themselves and start over as primitives? Scholar Ress's scales darkened, a sign of distress in his species. That's what we need to discover. Because if we can understand what they were running from, we might understand what humanity needs to avoid as you start remembering your power. Director Palm received an urgent message on his datapad. His fur rippled as he read it. We have a problem. A significant problem. More than humanity being secretly ancient reality warpers. Cortez asked dryly. Other humans are starting to manifest abilities. Palm displayed new reports. A human engineer on a colony ship in the Talus system. She was redesigning life support systems and started drawing circuit patterns that shouldn't work according to known physics. They do work, better than the originals. When questioned, she said the patterns just came to her in a dream. More reports followed. A human artist on a trade station painted a mural that made people feel profound peace when they looked at it. Not metaphorically, literally. Brain scans showed neural activity changing in measurable ways. A human child in a settlement wrote symbols in the dirt. A dead plant nearby began growing again. It's spreading, Rest said quietly. Miss Grant wasn't unique. She was just the first we noticed. The awakening is happening across your entire species. Lily's hand shook. Can you stop it? We don't know. Palms for arms gestured helplessly. We don't understand the mechanism. It's like once one human remembered, it triggered something in all of you. A collective memory beginning to surface. Ambassador Cortez's expression hardened. The council is considering the quarantine protocol seriously now. They want to vote within the next 4 days. What does that mean exactly? Lily asked. Every human in space returns to Earth immediately, Cortez explained. Then Earth gets surrounded by a barrier field. Nothing in, nothing out. Your species would be sealed away until the council decides you're safe, which, given their timescales, could mean thousands of years. They'd cage us. They'd protect themselves. Cortez's voice was sympathetic but realistic. From their perspective, humanity is a dormant superweapon starting to activate. They don't know what you'll do when you fully remember. They only know what the Forerunners did last time. Scholar Ress moved closer to the barrier. Unless we can prove what happened. If we can find the Forerunner records, understand why they erased themselves, we might convince the Council that humanity can be different, that you've grown beyond whatever mistake your ancestors made. Where would these records be? Here. Rest gestured to the station around them. Archive Station 12 houses the largest collection of Forerunner artifacts in the galaxy. Most of it is in deep storage, quantum-locked vaults that require Council authorization to access. But given the circumstances, Director Palm can grant emergency research clearance. Palm's first stood on end. Those vaults haven't been opened in centuries. The materials inside are classified at the highest level for good reason. Do we have a choice? Cortez demanded. In 4 days, Earth gets quarantined unless we provide answers. Scholar Ress is right. We need to know what the Forerunners discovered that made them choose extinction over continuation. Director Palm was silent for a long moment. Finally, his shoulders sagged. I'll authorize access to Vault 7. It contains the most complete Forerunner documents we possess. But Scholar Rest goes alone. We can't risk Miss Grant accessing information that might be dangerous. No, Lily said firmly. I need to go too. Absolutely not, Palm protested. You've already demonstrated you can activate their script. Exposing you to more knowledge could be catastrophic. I can read it, Lily said. When Scholar Rest showed me that symbol for light, I understood it instantly. Not just what it meant, but how it worked. The mathematical relationships, the reality-affecting principles. If the Forerunner records are in their language, Scholar Rest will spend weeks trying to translate them. I might be able to read them directly. Rest and Cortez exchanged glances. The scholar spoke first. She's right. We don't have weeks. We have 4 days. This is insanity, Palm muttered. But he began entering authorization codes on his datapad. Fine. But maximum security protocols. Arm guards. Energy dampeners. At the first sign of danger, we evacuate immediately. 2 hours later, Lily walked through the deepest levels of Archive Station 12. The corridors here were ancient, built by species long extinct. The walls hummed with containment fields. Scholar Rest walked beside her, his old joints creaking. Behind them, a security team followed at a careful distance. They reached Vault 7. The door was massive, inscribed with warnings in 200 languages. Director Palm entered the final authorization code. The door split down the middle and slowly opened, revealing darkness beyond. Rest activated a light on his wrist. The beam cut into the vault, illuminating rows and rows of crystal matrices. Each one held data, preserved perfectly for millennia. The Forerunner archives, Rest breathed. Their final records. Everything they knew, everything they feared, everything they tried to prevent. It's all here. Lily stepped into the vault. The crystals seemed to pulse as she passed them, like they recognized something. At the far end, a larger crystal sat on a pedestal. Unlike the others, this one glowed faintly from within. What's that? She asked. Scholar Rest approached it carefully. I don't know. It's not in any of our catalogs. It must have been too dangerous to document. Lily moved closer. The crystal's glow intensified. Text appeared in its depths, symbols flowing like water. Forerunner script, complex and dense. She stared at it, and understanding flooded her mind. It's a message, she whispered. A message from the Forerunners to whoever came after them. She read the flowing text, her voice steady but filled with growing horror. They didn't erase themselves because they made a mistake. They erased themselves because they succeeded. They solved the universe's greatest problem, but the solution was worse than the problem itself. What problem? Rest asked urgently. Lily kept reading, tears forming in her eyes as the truth became clear. Entropy, universal heat death. They discovered it was happening faster than nature intended. The universe was dying billions of years too soon. So they wrote a solution, a script that would reverse decay, restore balance, save everything. Then why did they erase themselves? Because it worked. Lily's voice broke. The script stabilized entropy, but there's always a price. Their solution required consciousness itself as fuel. Every thinking being in the universe would eventually be consumed, converted into energy to maintain cosmic balance. They'd save the universe by damning all life within it to feed the machine they'd built. The crystal pulsed brighter. More text appeared. They couldn't undo what they'd written. Lily continued. The script was too powerful, too deep. So they made a different choice. They erased themselves, hoping that without conscious beings to fuel it, the script would eventually fade. They scattered their minds into genetic patterns, hiding in primitive form on a distant world. And they left instructions. She looked at Scholar Rest with desperate eyes. They left us a way to finish what they couldn't. A counterscript, but it's incomplete. The crystal's glow filled the vault with pale light. Scholar Rest stood frozen, processing what Lily had just revealed. Behind them, the security team murmured nervously into their communicators. Director Palm's voice crackled over the intercom. Did she just say the Forerunners build a machine that feeds on consciousness? That's still active. Lily pressed her hands against the crystal, and more text flowed through its depths. Not a physical machine, a written command embedded into the fabric of reality itself. It's still there, still working, but slowly dying without enough conscious minds to sustain it. The Forerunners hoped it would fade completely over time. Is it fading? Scholar Ress asked urgently. Lily read deeper into the crystal's information. The symbols came faster now, responding to her touch. No, it's weakening, but it's also adapting. The script is intelligent in a way. It's learning to be more efficient, to extract more from less. In another 100,000 years, it will reach critical mass and begin consuming consciousness across the galaxy, whether anyone remembers the Forerunners or not. How long ago did they write this message? 12,000 years ago, right before they erased themselves. Lily's fingers traced patterns on the crystal surface. They knew they didn't have time to fix it properly, so they left instructions. A counter sequence that would undo the original script safely, dismantling it piece by piece instead of just trying to delete it. But they only completed 60% before they ran out of time. Scholar Ress leaned heavily against a nearby pillar. Let me understand this correctly. The Forerunners accidentally created a consciousness-consuming script that will eventually doom the galaxy. They erased themselves to buy time, and they left us an incomplete solution that humanity is only now starting to remember how to access. That's why we're waking up now, Lily realized. The timing isn't random. Some part of the Forerunner plan must have calculated when the consciousness script would become critical. They set humanity to awaken just before the deadline, hoping we'd remember enough to finish what they started. Director Palm's voice came through speakers around the vault. I'm bringing this to the Council immediately. They need to know the universe faces a threat beyond humanity. This changes everything. Does it? Ambassador Cortez had entered the vault, having followed them down. His face was grim. The Council will still see humanity as the dangerous element. After all, we're the ones with the ability to write these reality-altering scripts. For all they know, we might make the problem worse. Lily turned from the crystal to face him. Then we need to show them we won't. That humanity learned from the Forerunner's mistake. We need to prove we can finish the counter sequence safely, with help with oversight, not alone the way they were. How do we even begin? Cortez gestured at the crystal. You said the solution is incomplete. The Forerunners left clues about how to complete it. Lily pulled up the relevant sections, projecting them as holograms around the vault. Symbols floated in the air, complex patterns that made Scholar Ress's eyes widen. They broke the work into fragments and scattered them across their civilization. Different research teams working on different pieces. When they erased themselves, those fragments became buried in human genetic memory, split among millions of people. That's why multiple humans are awakening simultaneously, Ress breathed. Each person carries a different piece of the puzzle. The engineer who dreamed of impossible circuits, the artist whose mural affects emotions, the child who made plants grow. They're all remembering different fragments of the counter sequence. So we need to gather them all, Cortez said. Every human who's starting to remember. Pool our collective knowledge. It's more than that. Lily showed them another section of the crystal's message. We need them to remember consciously, not just unconsciously, to understand what they're doing and why. The Forerunners failed partly because they worked too fast, too desperately. They didn't fully comprehend what they were writing. We can't make that mistake. Director Palm appeared in the vault entrance, breathing hard from running. The Council is convening in 1 hour. They want a full report, and they've already heard rumors about what you found. Half of them are panicking about the consciousness-eating script. The other half are panicking about letting humanity anywhere near the solution. Can you blame them? Scholar Ress asked. We're talking about giving reality-warping power to a species that only rediscovered space travel a few hundred years ago. A species that still has wars, still struggles with cooperation, still makes catastrophic mistakes. We're also talking about the only species in the galaxy that can solve this problem, Lily countered. Like it or not, The Forerunners designed us to be their backup plan. We carry the knowledge they couldn't preserve any other way. If the Council quarantines Earth, seals away humanity, then in 100,000 years the consciousness script reaches critical mass and everyone dies anyway. At least with us, there's a chance. Cortez checked his communicator. I need to prepare a presentation. Lily, can you extract the relevant information from that crystal? We need to show the Council concrete evidence. I could do better than that. Lily turned back to the crystal and placed both hands on its surface. I can show them the original script. Not recreate it, just display what the Forerunners wrote 12,000 years ago. Let them see the problem firsthand. Is that safe? Palms first stood on end. Safer than trying to explain it in words they won't believe. Lily closed her eyes and focused. The crystal responded to her intent, her understanding of its contents. Holographic symbols began appearing throughout the vault, rising from the floor and spreading across the walls. They were beautiful and terrible. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. Mathematical relationships that defied standard physics. Reality code written in a language most species had never learned. Scholars studied them with professional fascination and personal horror. These are the symbols that nearly destroyed everything. If someone wrote these, right now, in their complete form, the effect would be instantaneous, Lily finished. Consciousness across the entire galaxy would begin draining away. Not quickly enough to notice immediately, but steadily, irreversibly. Within 10 generations, sentient life would cease to exist. And you can read these. Cortez stared at her. You understand how they work. I can. So can every human who's starting to wake up. The knowledge is in our blood, our neurons, the way our minds process patterns. The Forerunners didn't just leave us instructions. They made us into living libraries of their most dangerous secrets. Director Palm was making frantic calculations on his datapad. If we show this to the Council, some members will immediately vote for quarantine. Others might vote for something worse. There are species who believe preemptive elimination is justified when facing existential threats. Then we don't just show them the problem. Lily pulled up a different section of the crystal's data. We show them the solution. The parts the Forerunners completed before they erased themselves. Proof that the counter sequence is possible, that it works on a small scale, that with proper care and collaboration, it could work on a universal scale. She projected new symbols alongside the dangerous ones. These patterns look different, gentler somehow, though still complex beyond anything Scholar had seen in his 40 years of study. Where the consciousness script felt aggressive and consuming, these felt restorative, healing. This is what 60% complete looks like, Lily explained. If we could finish the remaining 40%, write it properly with full understanding and cooperation from multiple species, we could dismantle the consciousness script safely. No more feeding on sentient minds. No more countdown to galactic death. The universe could age naturally the way it was meant to. Scholar Ress moved from symbol to symbol, studying each carefully. The mathematics are sound. The logic is consistent. If this could be completed, he paused, scales shifting through colors that indicated deep thought. It would be the greatest collaborative project in galactic history. Dozens of species, hundreds of experts, all working together to fix a wound in reality itself. Or the greatest disaster, Director Palm countered. One mistake, one miscalculation, and we make things exponentially worse. Then we don't make mistakes. Lily's voice was firm. We take our time. We verify every step. We let the Council oversee everything. But we have to try, because the alternative is waiting for extinction. Ambassador Cortez checked the time. We have 40 minutes before the Council convenes. Lily, Scholaress, can you prepare a presentation showing everything we've discussed? The problem, the solution, the risks, the timelines. Everything. We can. Ress pulled out his own datapad and began transferring information from the crystal. But understand, Ambassador, we're asking the Council to place the fate of the galaxy in humanity's hands. A species they've known for less than 3 centuries. A species they're currently afraid of. I know. Cortez's expression was grave, but we're also offering them hope, a way forward instead of just fearful isolation. Sometimes that's enough to change minds. Lily watched the symbols floating in the vault around her. 12,000 years ago, her ancestors had looked at similar patterns and seen their own doom. They'd made the hard choice to erase everything they were rather than doom everyone else. Now, their scattered descendants had to make a different choice. Not to run from their power, but to master it carefully. Not to work alone in desperate isolation, but to reach out for help and guidance. We're not the Forerunners anymore, she said quietly. We're humanity, and maybe that's exactly what this situation needs. People who know what it's like to start from nothing, to build slowly, to learn from mistakes. The Forerunners were powerful, but they were alone. We don't have to be. Scholar Ress nodded slowly. Then let's go show the Council what humans have become, and ask them to trust us with what we used to be. Share artifacts, download all story outline document, MD. The Council chamber felt different this time. Lily stood in the same holographic amphitheater, but now hundreds more beings crowded the tiers. Word had spread. Every major species in the galaxy wanted to witness what would either be humanity's acceptance or condemnation. Ambassador Cortez stood beside her, with Scholar Ress on her other side. Director Palm had insisted on being present as well, his forearms carrying datapads full of supporting evidence. Above them, the crystalline speaker's form refracted light into painful brightness. The Council recognizes Ambassador Hal Cortez and Scholar Ress. You claim to have discovered critical information regarding the Forerunner extinction. Present your findings. Cortez gestured to Lily, who activated the holographic display they'd prepared. The consciousness script appeared first, floating in the center of the chamber. Many council members recoiled. Others leaned forward with horrified fascination. The symbols rotated slowly, revealing their complete and terrible structure. 12,000 years ago, the Forerunners discovered the universe was dying prematurely, Lily began. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. They wrote a script to reverse entropy and save everything. It worked, but the cost was consciousness itself. Every thinking being would eventually be consumed as fuel to maintain cosmic balance. Murmurs rippled through the council. A being made of living flame spoke up. Why should we believe this? Scholar Ress stepped forward. Because the effect is still measurable. We've analyzed data from Archive Station 12 going back centuries. There's a consistent, gradual drain on consciousness across the galaxy. So slow that individual lifespans can't detect it, but statistically significant over millennia. We thought it was natural background radiation. It's not. It's the Forerunner script, still active, still feeding. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species shouted in dozens of languages. The crystalline speaker released a pulse of energy that silenced everyone. If what you say is true, we face extinction regardless of what humanity does. Why does this change the quarantine discussion? Lily displayed the counter-sequence symbols. Because the Forerunners left us a solution, a way to safely dismantle the consciousness script. But they only completed 60% before they ran out of time. They scattered the remaining knowledge across their species when they erased themselves. That knowledge is now buried in human genetic memory. And you expect us to trust humanity to complete this. The red-scaled Drellian who'd spoken before rose again. You're asking us to give reality-warping power to a species that barely understands what they're doing. One mistake, and you could make the problem catastrophically worse. That's exactly why we're not asking to do it alone, Ambassador Cortez interjected. We're proposing a collaborative project. Project Restoration. Humans provide the knowledge buried in our genetic memory. The Council provides oversight, verification, and expertise from the galaxy's best minds. We work together, checking every step, ensuring safety at all times. A blob-like entity that pulsed with bioluminescence spoke. This would take years. Decades, perhaps. Can your species maintain focus for that long? Can you resist the temptation to use this power for yourselves? We can. Lily's voice rang clear. Because we've seen what happens when one species tries to fix everything alone. The Forerunners were powerful, brilliant, and they nearly destroyed existence because they worked in isolation. We're not them anymore. We're humanity, and we know we need help. Pretty words, the Drellian growled. But words are easy. How do we know you won't betray us once you've gathered all the pieces of their knowledge? Scholar Ress spoke quietly, but his words carried weight. Because I've worked with Miss Grant for days now. I've seen her grapple with power she never asked for. I've watched her prioritize understanding over action, caution over speed. She could have attempted to write more Forerunner script. She hasn't. She could have kept the vault's secrets to herself. She shared them immediately. Humanity is waking up to incredible power, but they're also waking up to incredible responsibility. Give them a chance to prove they've learned from their ancestors' mistakes. The crystalline speaker was silent for a long moment. The council will deliberate. All visitors will be removed from the chamber. Lily, Cortez, Ress, and Palm found themselves standing in a waiting area outside the council chamber. Through the walls, they could hear muffled voices raised in argument. The deliberation stretched on for hours. What do you think they'll decide? Lily asked quietly. Cortez shook his head. I honestly don't know. We gave them a choice between certain extinction and uncertain trust. Neither option is comfortable. If they vote for quarantine, what happens to the other humans who've awakened? Lily wondered. The engineer, the artist, the child, all the others starting to remember. They'll be collected and returned to Earth with everyone else, Cortez said. The knowledge dies with your generation, and in 100,000 years, the consciousness script consumes everything. Director Palm's fur rippled. Not necessarily. If the council understands the threat is real, they might authorize non-human researchers to study the problem. It would take longer without humans, but perhaps we could learn to read Forerunner script ourselves. 40 years you've studied them, Scholar Ress said to him. How much have you truly understood? How many symbols can you activate? Palm's silence was answer enough. The council chamber doors opened. The crystalline speaker stood in the entrance. The council has reached a decision. Please return. They walked back into the amphitheater. Every tier was full now, packed with beings who'd heard rumors and demanded to witness history. Lily's hands were sweating. This was it. The moment that would determine not just humanity's fate, but potentially the galaxy's future. The vote was not unanimous, the speaker began. There was significant opposition. However, by a margin of 62%, the council has approved Project Restoration under the following conditions. Lily's heart leaped. They said yes. First, all human participants must undergo extensive psychological evaluation and continuous monitoring. Second, every symbol written must be verified by a multi-species review board before activation. Third, research facilities will be established on neutral ground with full security protocols. Fourth, any human found attempting to use Forerunner script for personal gain will result in immediate project termination and species quarantine. Fifth, progress reports will be submitted to the council monthly. The speaker paused. And finally, the project will be led jointly by Scholar Ress of Vanta and Miss Lily Grant of Earth, with equal authority and mutual accountability. If either believes the project has become dangerous, they have the power to shut it down immediately. Scholar Ress looked at Lily with surprise and respect. She met his eyes and nodded. They could do this. Together. We accept all conditions, Ambassador Cortez said formally. Humanity thanks the Council for this opportunity to prove ourselves worthy of the trust you're placing in us. The following months transformed Archive Station 12 into something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans arrived from across space, everyone who'd started showing signs of awakening. 317 people, each carrying fragments of Forerunner knowledge in their genes. Engineers and artists, teachers and soldiers, children and elders, all of them remembering pieces of something vast. They worked alongside scholars from 50 different species. Mathematicians verified every equation. Physicists modeled every potential outcome. Linguists analyzed every symbol for hidden meanings. It was slow, careful, methodical work. Nothing like the desperate rush the Forerunners must have felt 12,000 years ago. Lily spent her days working with Scholar Ress, pooling human intuition with alien expertise. They would discuss a symbol for hours before anyone attempted to write it. They built models, ran simulations, consulted specialists. Some days they made progress on a single line. Other days they realized they'd made a mistake and had to start a whole section over. But gradually, piece by piece, the counter sequence took shape. The final 40% filled in. Not perfectly, not easily, but carefully, with wisdom earned from watching the Forerunners fail 0.6 months after the Council's decision. Lily stood in a specially constructed laboratory with representatives from every Council species watching. The complete counter sequence floated before her in holographic form. Scholar Ress stood at her side, one clawed hand resting gently on her shoulder. "This is it," she said quietly. "If we're right, if we understood everything correctly, writing this will dismantle the consciousness script safely. If we're wrong, then we've failed together," Ress finished. "But I don't believe we're wrong. I believe your species became exactly what the Forerunners needed. People who knew humility, who understood collaboration, who could admit when they needed help." Lily picked up the pen. Around her, 50 species held their collective breath. She began to write. Not quickly, not desperately. Carefully, thoughtfully, with full understanding of what each stroke meant. The symbols flowed from her hand. First line, second line, building slowly into something beautiful and complex. The counter sequence grew on the paper, spreading across multiple sheets as she progressed. Scholar Ress verified each section, checking her work against their models. Hours passed. The laboratory stayed silent, except for the scratch of pen on paper and the soft hum of monitoring equipment. Finally, Lily wrote the last symbol. The final stroke connected. She set down her pen. Nothing dramatic happened. No explosions, no light shows. But sensors throughout the lab began reporting changes. The background drain on consciousness, that subtle pull that had existed for 12,000 years, began to fade. Slowly at first, then faster. The consciousness script was dissolving. Safely. Naturally. Like ice melting in spring. Scholar Ress checked and rechecked the readings. His scales flushed with colors that indicated joy. It's working. Stars and dust, it's actually working. Across the galaxy, sophisticated sensors confirmed what the lab equipment showed. The wound in reality was healing. The Forerunner's desperate mistake was being undone, not through violence or force, but through patience and collaboration. In the days that followed, the Council formally welcomed humanity as full members of the galactic community. The restrictions remained, but they were reasonable ones. Humanity could use Forerunner knowledge, but only under supervision. They could write the script, but only with approval. They could teach it, but only to those who understood the responsibility it carried. Lily stood in the observation lounge where this all began, her notebook once again in her hands. Scholar Ress joined her, moving slowly but contentedly. "What will you do now?" he asked. "Teach," Lily replied. "There are young humans and young aliens who need to understand this language properly, not as a weapon or a tool, but as something that demands respect and wisdom." A good choice. Ress looked out at the stars. The Forerunners tried to save the universe alone and nearly destroyed it. Humanity saved the universe by asking for help. That's a lesson worth teaching. Lily sketched in her notebook. Not Forerunner script this time, but a new symbol. One she and Ress had designed together over long conversations. It combined human and Vontari elements, a bridge between species. "What does it mean?" Ress asked. "Trust," Lily said simply. "Trust across difference. The thing that saved us all." The symbol glowed softly on the page, proof that some powers could be gentle, some knowledge could heal, and some collaborations could change everything.